mentioned, going to be very high priority as well. So AL immediately go for the Ashe and the Ryze. And honestly, PingZ had a great time in that Ryze on the mid lane. So saying, look, we don't care what you really pick into this. I will say you do have things like the Sylas that can do very effectively into it. We'll see if Strive wants to go back towards the, the Azir as well.
Yeah, you got a couple of things to go towards this, right? Okay, right, that's the Vi. You can go towards a lot of different stuff for this now. I'm trying to remember, this was banned a couple of times, actually. This has been banned in the first couple of times in this series. Strive's played 2 games on this so far. I believe there's 1 win and 1 loss on that. Would have been an answer into that Ryze, who kind of pushes into the Castellan, but the Castellan just says, okay, I get access to my minions now. That's okay. Definitely an answer, definitely an option for this. Not choosing to lock that in right now, though. The Vi going to be locked in against alongside a very stable bot side. Southwind been playing an awful lot of the Karma. And what we won't see this game now, probably, is RA being pinned under turret with no outplay tools for themselves, like that Zeri Lulu struggling in that early game. Xiaohao, though, going back towards the early game jungler of that Lee Sin, will have the priority of that Ryze in the mid lane almost certainly. Not many matchups of Ryze gets pushed in. Lee Sin Ryze, very strong mid jungle early 2v2.
I love the fact that we're seeing Xiaohao go back towards that Lee Sin. It is very much something that he played exceptionally well on in game number 2. It was very strong in those early skirmishes. Can do fairly well into the Vi. It does become more of a skill shot matchup. It depends on who hits what first in that regard. But we'll see now what both teams want to try and prioritize in the next phase of bans. I was going to say that AL probably going to start banning away mid laners, the Cassidy, maybe even the Azir.
That makes a lot of sense.
Things that can get rid of or deal with the Ryze and its heavy priority in that mid lane.
Yeah, I know it's kind of like the cardinal sin to talk about hovers before they're locked in. That Castellan, though, the reason why I really want to talk about it is because actually it works very well against the Ryze, because yeah, it just allows you to kind of scale up. Ryze can't really threaten you in a lot of ways, so that's a very good ban from AL. They managed to take that away. The question is, what do you think can actually threaten this Ryze's priority in the early lane? We saw Syndra being hovered as well. That's something which Strive has played 2 games of. You already mentioned that Sylas. That's an option. The Azir also in there too. It's going to be the Akali, which would have been, of course, a very dangerous combo between the Vi and the Akali in terms of double diving assassins of the melee variety. Maybe not wanting to give such a volatile mid-jungle 2v2, particularly when you have Lee Sin. Lee Sin very good at those mid-jungle 2v2s as well. SwordArt, though, choosing to take away some of these bot laners. SwordArt obviously playing that Ashe in that last game. It is a variable pick, though. You can play that between both roles. So the question is, now you have to blind pick your top laner into Cube, which is a very dangerous prospect, and you still need to finish off this bot lane. I assume that you're going to lock in towards this bot lane in 2v2, because you already see the Varus and the Karma hit. Question is, what do you want to do in regards to you going towards your double AD carries, or do you want to pick in something towards your support instead?
Yeah, again, looking towards the bot lane being locked in here, picking your top laner here doesn't really lend yourself too much of a credence in terms of the advantages that red side would have. So they're going to lock in the Sivir. Highly doubt it's a Sivir support, but you know what? This meta's been a bit crazy, so we'll wait and see.
Umbral Glaive, Q-back Sivir support, hell yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, you might Q normally, but hey, you don't get the
I was going to say, I was like, I'm pretty sure you do that regardless, but you know what? We'll change it up and you max spell shield. Why? Because we don't know. But
just,
we'll see now.
Sustain in lane, duh.
You start to actively put yourself in harm's way to try and get the spell shield procs. But
you know, you used to do that with Sivir versus Caitlyn. That was actually something that we
remember. You used to roll over the chaps and stuff. It was great. That's why Sivir was considered a counter into Caitlyn many moons ago. But yeah, again, going back to see the Renekton here to Cube. Cube has played it now 3 games in a row. See if he does end up having a much better time. And honestly, I would not mind to see CDC go straight back towards that Ornn. I think it would really synergize well with what you've got in terms of the Lee Sin engage. It will do very well. Basically, everything's the same except for the Varus.
You're giving the Sylas your ultimate. That is the reason why I wouldn't pick that. Now, I think that a tank in the top side is pretty good. Maybe something like a Scion could work a little bit better in that option, actually. If you want to go towards a tanky team fighting top laner, you're still filling that role of, like, tanky frontliner, allows you something like this, but you don't give over the Ornn ult. But I actually see both
I was right. You were wrong.
No,
I'm the greatest.
Okay, production, can we get this guy? Hey, can we get another play-by-play? That'd be great. But still, it is going to be unlocked in. But this comes with a warning on it, because you are going to have your ult stolen by that Sylas. It is one of the better ults in the game for Sylas to steal, because it is just the ability to be that long-range engage from a distance. But looking into this draft, you do have that Vi for Leyan. You do have an awful lot of ability to skirmish around this top side. But for the love of God, Leyan, you gotta go towards this top side this time. You gotta make something happen with your solo laners. Make something happen. It's gonna be a little bit difficult with the...
In a lot of senses of this game. So AL looking to try and cement themselves with their first W of the year in terms of series. But RA really want to be making this a 2-1. Really want to be getting themselves up into that upper echelon of the playoff standing, especially this early on the split.
Level 1 stack from AL towards this top side as we hear the gyros ring out across the arena. Sylas was actually linked up with their bot lane. Strive, Southwind, Sssum getting towards that bot side jungle. So vision put down on one side of the map, even if that's not matched towards the top side. And very interesting level 1s, actually. You don't often see that kind of the weirdly like half stack, the 3 on one side, 2 on the other. Normally you see either a 5-man fan across the entire map, or of course everyone stacked up in one place. But what this does mean is you're going to have Raptors watered out, you're going to have bot side jungle watered out as well on the side of anyone's legend. And when you have early game junglers like the Lee Sin, like the Vi that can get into lanes, very important to see where that jungler is headed, see if you can't counter them at all.
Shall wait to see how it all goes. Betty gonna say, all right, Sssum, not really a lot for you to do here, my friend. And this is the power of the Ashe support. Even just her passive, the slows. And that's RA's bot lane already losing priority. And when you pick a Varus Karma, not a great start.
That is actually really interesting from AL. Because the Mantra Q from Karma misses level 1, that is a huge amount of damage missing. You also know that if you start W on Sivir, you can get 2 stacks of lethal tempo very, very quickly. Betty and SwordArt do a quick calculation and say, hey, let's start W on the Sivir instead of something like a Q if we want to fight range versus range. We can win this early trade. Both summons taken away from Sssum with quick thinking from anyone's legend spot lane. The old Flash Wolves, Betty and SwordArt, getting something out of this laning phase.
You say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but...
What about a wolf?
I was going to say, got some wolves in that bot lane. I always like to talk about the old Flash Wolves duo. And again, KingZ going to have priority in this mid lane with this Ryze. You just have that with the spell flux and such. But now Xiaohao teeters his way around that corner. Doesn't get spotted until very much now. Q over the wall by Leyan, followed by Xiaohao, but it only lands onto the Krug, so not going to be able to kind of follow up on that particular one. But
they tried it last game. Can they do it this time?
Oh, they're going to go for it. I think at least try and get rid of his flash, but they're going to get him away from the CS instead. So Xiaohao again being aggressive, and I love to see this because it's these little mini metas that we kind of develop when we're on a patch for so long, where it's like, okay, you're going for Maokai's, you're going for Sejuani's or anything like that. We're going to be able to take these away from you because we can go for an early skirmisher. We can go for something that can fight you early on in the jungle, and we are seeing a benefit from it, I really think, from the side of AL.
Yeah, and because of that level 1 trade from Betty and SwordArt, you can see that bot side control has gone over to anyone's legend. Mid lane already expected that to be pushing in. Strive being denied some minions from under that tower. Xiaohao taking away at least the 1 camp from the enemy jungle. AL getting a decent amount of control in it. Yes, he was left alone towards this top side, but the reason that he has to be left alone towards that top side is because Leyan has to be on call for this bot side once again. Even in this draft, you would have expected it to be a bit more dominant from Renekton towards their bot side of the map, but that hasn't happened. And that means AL have much more of a foothold in this game than potentially we would have expected.
AL just prioritizing this bot lane as much as they possibly can. I like the Ashe priority they put SwordArt on. He has plenty of games on the champion. Betty, though, with flashing times available, is very much by himself. Leyan will be able to flash Q into him, so it should just be spell shields. And Betty is as cool as you like. Ice in his veins, doesn't lose a single summoner, and keeps himself relatively safe.
AL doing an awful lot better in this early game than we saw in, of course, that game 1. RA returned back to comfort for game 3, but they're not finding the same advantages that they did in their own victory. Looking towards this top side matchup, of course, Cube MVP of game 1. Talked about him being very important to this team, being a good litmus test for how well the team is doing. But despite having a CS lead, hasn't taken any place. Not like he's managed to impact any of the rest of the map this early on. Top lane has very much struggled to do so. As is level 6 mark though, Dominus available. Maybe Leyan can make a trip towards this top side, try and get this Renekton to a point where he can actually impact this lane, but very difficult to against ZDZ, who has that teleport, comes back now, has the level 6. I wonder if the window of time to very much exploit that Ornn is growing shorter.
So far, so good from AL. Pretty quiet, though, in terms of the first blood percentages, but with Dragon spawning, or have spawned, and Rift Herald 2 minutes away, you would imagine we start to see some early rotations coming out from both these sides. You will still only have a Sivir on the bot side, but I don't think the Sivir is the big one. I think the big one is, in fact, this Karma heal by SwordArt to try and get onto Sssum, I guess, but doesn't feel that worth. I feel like that one was just a missed opportunity. You go off, you kind of go, cool, we're not going to get anything else from it, and we back away.
That is a brief window of time where Sssum still has no flash. You have the, of course, the move speed from the heal, maybe trying to get those autos tagged into the slow, but calculation's wrong. Don't really manage to get on top of it. Now you're without that summoner for a potential dragon fight. Betty put out one side, Leyan looking in. I wonder what's going to come of this. Sylas coming down to the play though, makes things a little more awkward.
Again, very difficult to make something stick here for the side of AL. RA doing very well comparatively to game number 1 and 2 to stop this early dragon stacking. Leyan need to be a bit more careful though. He will take a fair bit of damage.
Gotta remember an Ashe ult, Strive.
Here we go. Flash is going to land. The CC as he's trying to use the realm up to get himself out. He will not survive. And that's going to be 2 kills going over to RA. AL thought they had the distance, but the good flash from Southwind secured the kill.
Pingsy just poured out a little too much on the side. Can't join the rest of his team. And really punished for trying to join that fight in the worst kind of angle. And now suddenly, you're looking at what was a decent early game through Xiaohao holding back the mid jungle of Renekton. Bot lane doing its own job. Cube though.
Keep going with this top side. Cube trying to see if he can take down ZDZ. It's a very close fight. The Renekton gets the solo bolo. And Cube will come out on top. This is what we just didn't see in game number 1. I don't know why ZDZ has decided to take that 1v1 now.
Yeah.
He knew how this matchup went in game number 2.
My favorite part of that is when Cube said, it's Cube in time, and then cubed all over him. He sliced and diced him into multiple chunks, and that one, I guess, level 6 all in, just not quite there on that calculation. Wasn't quite calculated enough here from Pingsy as well. Seen him be a little bit disconnected from the rest of the team multiple times in this series. Even in that last game, there was that awkward dive under mid lane turret where he thought they were going, wasn't actually going to be the case. And back to this 1v1 on the top side. I get that all does a lot of damage. Not enough to finish this one off though. Doesn't quite manage to get the kill before Dominus spots. And Cube, credit to him for knowing his damages.
You know what the craziest thing is? It's a little bit of a
Tell
non-secular,
me.
but I genuinely thought he said it's Morbin time in that movie. Because the internet convinced me that was actually said. Because I don't really care for Marvel movies or anything like that.
the entire premise of that joke was literally, I can't believe that he said this, and you can't prove me wrong because no one has watched this movie. That was the entire premise of all of those lines. And now it's come full circle in terms of like, wait, hang on, that's not a line in the movie? It's just, how ridiculous can you make this before things go crazy? I love that. The Strive taxi service bringing Southwind back to bot lane. That's great. I like that.
Yeah, it's very nice. You know, be nice to your supports. They do a lot. They ward a lot. Yeah, I like how it also forced the publishers to think they could re-release that movie into cinemas because they thought it would be a massive success. But neither here nor there. And you know who might not here or there in the next moment might be this mid lane as both junglers. Oh, that was clean from Xiaohao. He completely takes assessment of the situation and just perfectly executes.
MVP of game 2 wants his first series win. Xiaohao on the lead in. Been a real revelation for his team in this series so far, and even though Strive and Leyan did a really good job around that bot side fight and making things start off in the favor of Renekton, cannot achieve the same in that mid jungle 2v2. Going back to the replay, where are we going to start? We're going to start right back in this mid lane. So, this through the way, go to forward with the absconded duct. If you have the Lee Sin ult to steal yourself in this fight, maybe this gets a little bit closer. Xiaohao kicks, uses the kick flash to make sure that he doesn't stay under tower. That would have been the real danger point. Xiaohao commits the flash, but gets a good reward for it.
I this is what I love about junglers, man. We've kind of, it's mad how we've adapted as players and such. It's kind of like, you know, the longer a game is played in any sense of a traditional or video, you just have to get better because there's more available to you. There's more, you know, footage to kind of say things. Remember when people learn, but you remember the Lee Sin insect kick was like the greatest thing of all time?
Yeah,
and now it is standard. It is standard for a Lee Sin, any jungler who plays Lee Sin, to not only play Lee Sin, but to play it to that level. That's how insane that is.
Yeah. Time ticks forward, mechanics creep higher. CDC using the ult wave to clear the wave. Leyan is on top side, maybe could have made an angle towards that. Maybe it is actually still an angle to go towards this top side because EDC still does not have his flash, but Leyan instead going to find himself his own advantage. Let's take away those Raptors. And, we're looking for the next big play. Herald in the inventory of Leyan. Let's see where that one is placed. I'm wondering if it's probably worth going towards Sssum in this game. A lot of the time getting gold on towards your AD carry is a big factor, particularly when you're against a frontline tank as well. Someone like this Ornn. AD carries are typically the best placed character to take them down. Extra gold and something like a Varus could very much help towards that end. But AL, they're looking to group towards this mid lane. Dragon up in a minute, looking to push in through mid, then head back down towards that bottom river. Two different objectives to look towards. You've got the Herald ready to be dropped and that Dragon ready to be taken. Those are what we're looking for and how they're used in the next minute or two.
Both junglers in this bot side of the jungle. 30 seconds till the dragon spawns. RA got the first. AL would definitely love to get themselves the second. Good vision control for the moment for RA as they've got themselves slightly behind enemy lines. Betty needs to be very aware. I imagine that there is a jungler here, and yes, he had a sixth sense. He had an inkling that someone was lurking in the shadows. He's just going to be able to try and move himself up now and continue to wave clear as best he can. Shelly will get dropped into the bot lane and should just about get her head bopped off, but the dragon now live on the table.
No gold to the Varus, which is a little annoying, but it does go to Leyan. Dragon started up, so that is going to be taken. AL, I think they just realized, right, don't really want to walk into something like strive to teleport towards that bot side. You understand that not really at the point in power yet where you have like 2 to 3 items Sivir who can maybe run through these fights. Not worth walking into a stolen Ashe ult, throwing around that dragon. Of course, they already lost around that first one of the game a little earlier. Ocean Rift, 2 dragons to the side of Renekton. Ocean Soul would be a lovely prize in this game. So, watch out for that soul point as it comes in later. Renekton managed to recover a little bit from, of course, that disastrous game scene. I love when Sylas is like, well, I gotta do something with this. We're gonna run out soon. He just fires it off to the corner of the map. I love that.
It's a nice little thing to have, but yeah, I'm not quite sure he needed to leave that early. It felt like he could maybe have stopped a little bit of a push here, but was very aware that the mid lane was pushing against them. As AL did get themselves back onto the map. Plate goes over to the bot lane of AL, and there's only about 1,000 gold lead in it. So really, only the real advantage coming out for RA is that dragon stacking they have improved for themselves. But we are starting to see first item completions. You do have the Gore Drinker from Xiaohao and the Rod of Ages stacking up here for Ping Z. You've got the Kraken Slayer finished up for Betty. These are little things, but this is the start of the end, or the beginning of the end, shall we say, for the side of RA. If they do not start to find some more bigger, more tangible advantages in this game.
Yeah, we can see that Leyan went towards the Chainsword first and Cube went towards the Gore Drinker. What that means is actually you don't have a Black Cleaver for your triple AD damage threat. So, look, Vi actually does have some damage. It's worth having a Black Cleaver for their damage too. So I wonder if actually one of Renekton or Vi should have picked that one up first to try and make the most of these first fights. I get that both of those items go into the Chainsword, very good stat sticks in their own right, but could be useful for one of those champions to pick up a Black Cleaver sooner rather than later to aid each other in doing damage to particularly this Ornn, who is emoting under tower because EDC knows he's doing fine. For a player which has struggled in individual top matchups through both this series and across this year so far as well, that's going to be a problem. Bot lane.
Oh, a nice flash kick does keep Sssum away from any kind of relative safety. He's not going to use any of his summoners because he knows that he's dead, right? But in 3 in bot side means that there's 3 free in the mid where Adam gets himself a kill. He may be able to put pressure now onto this Rift Herald because everyone from AL went bot.
Yeah, well, they did commit Leon's flash ult for this. That's a stolen ult.
the stolen ultimate, and he's going to find himself in a lot of trouble. Flashes away. This is the power of the Rod of Ages. You have so much HP, just stacking and stacking and stacking. I will say he does have the Merc Treads as well, so that just keep him relatively safe in most instances. But good to see the Summoners being burned here for our AAL. Still need to find themselves a way back in terms of the objective game, because they are slowly falling behind in that regard. And now Strive trying to deal with this Betty free pushing in the bot side.
Yeah, maybe a bit worried about someone coming around the corner though. RA don't have the best bot side vision. They got a little bit. They got one in that that lane rush, but Strive has to let that one go. Replay. So I guess we're going to see what happened around this. I mean, he just gets caught out of it. Doesn't take the trip down with the rest of his team. Fires the ult, says, right, I'm done with that. Doesn't get in the taxi. Is left alone. Whereas he sneaked that one up. So Harold put down his mid lane. Aston might actually get some gold from this one. He didn't get any from the first one. Mid lane power goes down. That's important. It's actually very important. But Cube, 1v2. Let's see what he can do top side.
Oh, he flashed before the Ornn horn was sounded. He is going to sustain quite a bit with that Gourd Drinker. He needs to be so careful to try and not make sure that does not happen again. Shutdown goes over to the Ryze, and AL, they're coming into their own right now. They're kind of picking up the gears. You have a Sivir, a Ryze, and Ornn. You have extensive late game scaling that is going to start to come to fruition in the next 5-6 minutes.
Yeah, and you're not in a position to 1v2 in that situation. Cube, bit of an awkward flash. Maybe gets out with his life if he doesn't get hit by the Ornn, but of course it's such close range. Difficult to do so. PingZ though, able to pick up a side lane turret, deny a lot of farm in this top lane. At least I think he will be able to on that top side. Probably close to it. And anyone's legend. Actually throwing back some punches. Able to get something out of this early game as it's just starting to end. Got past the second herald now, getting into the mid-game side of things, and that's how we'll finally fall on that top side. This Ryze, PingZ, the late replacement for Harder in 2023, came in after a couple of series of harder play. Doing very well in this game and potentially looking to seal AL their first series win in this do-or-die match in this series, Game 3.
Well, Soul Point going over to RA. No one on the side of AL willing to contest it just yet. They're saying, look, we wait 5 more minutes. PingZ will have full stacks in his Rod of Ages. He'll have his Seraphs. We'll probably have a full first item or full mythic item onto ZDZ. Maybe an item and a half more for Betty. That's kind of the game plan right now for AL. They're looking for one big fight, I would imagine, around this Dragon Soul. And the thing is, if they're able to secure that 4th dragon of the game, that delays the game even further. It just plays into their pocket. So RA, yes, fantastic for them to pick up those first 3 dragons. They need this soul if they want to try and keep in tow with what I imagine AL is looking to do.
Yeah, if they get that soul, particularly the Renekton gets really insufferable. Even someone like you can see that Strive is building towards the Zhonya's. So, in case you don't know, Ocean Soul keeps ticking up and healing you while you are in stasis of the Zhonya's, which is very important for a champion like Sylas, who goes in, heals a bit with the W, uses the breadth of the HP bar, which is, of course, extended by the Rod of Ages. If you have an Ocean Soul ticking while you're in stasis, just makes it that harder to kill you. But you got to get to that point first, and it's 4 minutes away. Getting to second items now. Sivir, Betty Sivir becoming much more of a threat, and the Ornn reached level 13, getting to the point where you're going to get even more gold value out of the ornaments coming through sooner rather than later.
Look at top lane turret, but already Machine Gun Ryze is starting to do Ryze wave clear things. Zhonya's Hourglass, not far off for Strife, but hasn't quite been able to finish up that item. We will see the Rod of Ages and Seraph stack coming in here for PingZ. Now there's just a little bit of a lull as we see all teams just trying to corral themselves around this dragon, or excuse me, the Baron Pit up by the red buff. But red buff was secured by the smite by Xiaohao. Again, nothing really too untoward to be talking about. So looking at the way these team fights are going to be setting themselves up, how do you want to see RA fate themselves up? They obviously have a bit of an advantage. They've got a little bit of a gold lead. They have 3 minutes until that soul. How do you want to see them approach that particular objective?
Depends on which ult Strive chooses or can get a hold of before the fight builds up. If you have an Ashe arrow, you're looking for the first target. Look to see if you can catch out someone on the flank. I think a lot of it for RA works from pushing in a side lane, getting a flank, and allowing either Sylas or Renekton to get into the backline. If they're stood with their group, the rest of the team, it needs to be very hard to get through. Lee Sin kick, the Ornn. And that's going to be the real tale of it. Can you get past those 2 beefy frontliners and onto the carries of the Ryze, onto the Sivir as well, because those champions will absolutely run amok. Strive just turning around the corner. Ornn ult or Ashe ult with a real big flavor of this match for him. See which one he really wants to go towards. The big team fight engage or the single target. Going towards the single target, that's the Ashe ult.
Ashe ult. Oh, nicely absorbed there by Betty. Really heads up play there, recognizing he is probably the only one who can take the hit and then survive the aftermath. So nothing to be done there. Good hawk shot to spot out absolutely everybody else waiting in the bush as we return. Clean's going to be hit by Sssum, who does get out the chain of corruption. Bit of harassment as well. It's all poking and prodding, pushing and pulling. No one fully committing right now, but plenty being burned by both sides.
This is because they can't find RA, haven't found a flank. They haven't found the multiple angle, but they found Betty.
They found Betty, but he had the spell shield back. Leyan waited too long, and now AL can return the favor. It's all on Cube. He gets the Gore Drinker proc, so he's very, very powerful, but a double kill over to the Ryze. Ping Z on this Ryze is just too much to handle, and AL come out on top 2 for 1.
Huge mechanical misplay by Leyan. He tries to smite away the spell shield before the ult lands, but he doesn't get it. He loses that mind game with Betty. Betty gets the spell shield and lives. We talked about how it is all about getting onto the Sivir, getting onto the Ryze for rare atom. They don't manage it in that fight. They don't find the flank. They misuse that Sylas ultimate. And AL, they look at RA, they stare them down and they say, blink first. They do. Look at how this works. Watch when this smite comes through. He times it late. The ult animation has already gone through by Leyan before he smites. The smite then ends up going through, but the ultimate doesn't. It means that there's no CC onto that Sivir, and AL, they get to run things back with that Sivir ult running.
Big gold now going over to the Ryze, who, as you see, the Ryze and Sivir are starting to stack up, starting to do damage. 40 seconds though until that soul point. You've no flashes on really any of your carries here on the side of RA, where the only one you lost on the side of AL was Ping Z, and so he used it aggressively to try and catch out Sssum. No cleanse either on Sssum, so if he gets caught out by an Ashe arrow, he's effectively dead at this point in the game, so have to be so wary of his positioning. As we can see now, AL starting to feel confident. Ashe arrow does miss. They're going to use the Realm Morph to try and get on top of Cube, who has the dominance to pop up, try and keep himself alive with the Gore Drinker, the kickback. He's still going strong. He's still keeping himself alive. Just about falls down. Xiaohao needs to keep himself alive before anything else happens in this game. Strive, very, very healthy, still able to push back multiple people as Ping Z now in a lot of trouble, trying to use that phase rush to the best of his ability. He goes golden. Xiaohao gets caught out, and they're going to be able to take out the Ashe, the Ryze, and the Lee Sin. They get everybody and everything. RA are able to make it work because AL got separated.
They get separated, and Betty flashes over a wall to kill Cube. As soon as that flash is gone, as soon as Sivir is out of range to do DPS, AL are not the same team composition. The Sivir is so core to everything that they're doing. Swing and a miss from the Ashe ult. Almost a swing and a miss from this Ryze ult too, honestly. You're going into melee range of Cube on that Renekton. And despite taking so much damage, does an awful lot of AoE. That's like half the HP bars from mid and jungle from AL right at the start of that fight. Sssum not under any threat. SwordArt out of the play. Betty out of the play. Strive more than happy to run them down. And AL very aggressive on the engage. They've given up the Soul. They've given up the Baron. RA, despite that difficult game 2, despite some difficulties in this early game of game 3, are looking to take absolute control of the series.
Yep, they get themselves a soul, they now have the Baron, and I really gotta call out Xiaohao on the last play. The Lee Sin Dragon's Rage kick wasn't it. He tried to use it as an execute onto Cube. Cube got the Gore Drinker off, which means he doesn't go low enough. He ends up getting further and further away, and they have to commit more and more to kill him off. It really did feel like you need to be keeping that ultimate not as a killer, but as an initiator, as something to try and get either people in or away from your team. So little bit of a misplay there from Xiaohao as the Baron is now secured.
Oh, Leyan.
Leyan, that's the kind of kick that we need to be seeing. And Leyan, kind of living up to his name in Twitch chat, which we shall not name.
That was an awful lot for a red buff. You have used the Ashe ult, you have used the Sivir ult and the Ornn ult now though, so rare atom, maybe a stolen Ashe ult or the like could make things a little spicy for them, but after such a hard-earned advantage, especially getting that Baron buff, that is a bit of a misuse of it. You now suddenly don't get to group up in the same way to use the most of that buff, and Ping Z happy to side lane at this point too.
Happy to go for the side wave. Nearly level 16, as is Strive. Cube, probably not far off it as well. ZDZ starting to put in those ornaments right now. So we get to have that really fun game, a little mini game that I like to have, which is...
Do you know the Kraken Slayer one?
I do not know the Kraken Slayer one.
The
I know
Wormfallen
the
Sacrifice. I know that one. Wormfallen Sacrifice.
The Eclipse one is like
Syzygy
or something. Yeah,
Syzygy, yeah. You see,
no, Ziggy.
yeah.
I prefer that one. That's my preferred.
You know what? I'm not opposed to people having fun. You have all the fun you want with that name. That's completely okay.
Well, you know, we'll see.
Do you know what a Syzygy is? It's a special kind of eclipse. It is a special kind of eclipse. I think it's like when the moon is the it's like, I'm trying to remember, it's when like you have the moon, the earth, and then the sun in alliance, like they're in the opposite way. There's something like that. There's a weird thing with it. It's a specific orientation of an eclipse. But AL might get eclipsed in this one. That Ryze ult, not going to be pulled in any sense. I don't know why he pulled the Ryze ult. Varus ult pulled in return. They're stolen on ult.
Stolen on Ornn. Betty actually used his spell shield there to no real avail. They are trying to just defend this tier 2. This will be the first of the tier 2s to really go down, you would imagine. And despite all the huffing and puffing from RA, it's not gone down just yet. They still do have Charles the Cannon minion to try and put in some decent work. Leyan goes straight in on the backside, immediately has to flash away because he recognizes that he's not that tanky. So if he gets caught out, he will just die. Flash was burnt though by Ping Z. And you can see, despite the Baron buff, it's a difficult slog through the trenches to try and get these towers, to try to get this damage down. The Ashe arrow was stolen and used, but it wasn't going to lead to anything else. So we come back into this game and only one tower taken for all that time, all that resources. It's not that great of a trade, in my opinion, for RA.
Well, a lot of that comes from Leyan dying on that red buff for no particularly good reason. It's stalled out the game, which should have been the killer blow, but AL, credit to them, managing to pick off enemy jungle in that jungle on that red buff. Xiaohao poking his head around as well. This Lee Sin, decent early game impact to win both of the games that we've seen it. MVP for that game too, of course, but really going to struggle now to get maximum value. You're probably looking at just kicking Renekton out of a fight, just kicking at very best someone like a Varus into the team, but that would be a very hard goal to do, and you've got to get through the Vi and the Renekton in front of him. AL though, they're still in it, especially as you were saying, the Baron buff not getting the maximum value. Very much CAL grouping up, trying to use their ultimates once again, try and get a cleaner initiation that they managed to in the last 5 or 6 minutes or so. Try and maybe flip around this Elder.
New item. Getting an ornament. The Jack Show. You know what that one is called? Because that's what this one's actually really cool. I actually really like this one.
I don't know this one. What is Jack Show Protean evolved into?
Unspoken Parasite.
Oh,
it's kind of cool,
meaty,
right?
I
it's
like
kind of metal, right?
See, I'm a big fan of like Warhammer Fantasy and 40,000, both of them, and that is just the most grimdark name I can think of, which is a word which is typically
Parasite is so
that is
cool.
just great. That sounds like a Tyranid horror. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it really does feel like ZDZ is going to be that unspoken parasite as he just kind of keeps everyone off of his team, and going to be kind of stacking up now with a lot of resistances. It's going to be very difficult to take him down later on in these fights. You're now at 3.5 items for your Sivir. You have 3.5 items for your Ryze. You are a significant late game. You do have a Rabadon's Deathcap 4 Strife as he TPs back into the hinge. Xiaohao looking for a move, but they pinged him out because they have a ward on him. Needs to be careful. Oh, they're going to try and jump in now on top of this one here. They're getting a lot of damage on the Southwind and a lot of damage on the Leyan, who doesn't have a flash, remember, because he had to use it, but he got his job done. They killed the Silver. The Sivir is dead, and they're going to have to see now Ping Z trying to get out with his ultimate, but it's not going to be enough. Strive and Leyan got their jobs done. They found the AD carry, and that could just be game.
Both these junglers looking for their respective enemy AD carries. Leyan finally finds the mark, punished for it earlier. Not going to be to do so at the death of this game, the death of this series. With both carries down for anyone's legend, this could very well be the death push of the series.
Absolutely, another stolen ultimate. You can see Strife just on this Sylas just has so little basic cooldown at all, to be honest with you, with his ultimate. He's able to hijack everything. They are able to kill off most of the waves, so this might not be the game just yet. Xiaohao, one more auto attack would have killed him off. Sssum not going to be taken down by the turret, neither will Strive. And TPs are coming in, but they're not quite done with this one just yet. That's going to be ZDZ jumping back in with the fight. He doesn't have his ultimate just yet. They know the Elder is live. They know the Baron is as well. They can't let these go.
Exactly, because that base push fails, Elder, Baron, both alive. You have to fight around this Elder. You cannot let this go on either side. Typically does mean the death of that game. While it might have not been at that Nexus push, ultimate's coming back up for AL in the next few seconds. Can they find an initiation?
Here we go. You've got a stolen Sivir ultimate. This is the thing that when you're rotating through all these ultimates, all the good ones are gone. All the great ones are no longer available to you. You've got to be very careful which one you're able to kind of go for. The Elder has been started. CDZ would love to use his Ornn as possible, but PingZ's been caught. He goes golden. We're going to see the Ornn. Southwind is dead. Leyan, Sssum is very much on his own, but he's taking people down with him. The Sivir and the Varus have been traded. The Ashe is dead. ZDZ trying to be a nuisance, trying to be that unspoken parasite, but it shall not be enough. Cube with the double, and RA looking like they're going to be able to take this series.
Oh, and Betty cannot stay alive against the Varus. Xiaohao, he doesn't have it all. He's just walking up towards this wave, seeing what he can do, and it's a whole lot of nothing. RA on the second attempt of visiting these Nexus towers will take them down and will keep themselves afloat in this series, go to a positive win rate of 3-2.
Positive win rate. Unfortunately for AL, they go to 0-6. We'll talk about that in a minute, but for the moment, RA 3-2, really nicely done for them as they keep their drive for playoffs alive.
It was a harder fought win than potentially we would have thought at the start of the day. I think you and I were both expecting potentially a 2-0 coming through from Meratim, given that AL has showed us sparingly little through their first 5 series. But in the 6th, they take a win. They actually find a decent set of early game results in that game 3 as well. It's an improvement, but it is not an improvement to their series score. 0-6, right at the bottom of the table. Very difficult start for them. But Rare Adam, again, giving us some questions today towards the negative, but still showing that they are a competent team that may push towards those playoff spots later into the split.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good moment, I suppose, for RA and making sure that